All right, hello everybody, and welcome to our Social Sales Growth Forum members only webinar. It's the top of the hour, and today we're talking about using single interest in your Facebook campaigns. All right, so this is going to be a good topic because this is one of those topics where I'm basically sharing what I'm doing and seeing success with. And those I feel like are always the member calls that get the most positive feedback, and people are able to take and implement and see the quickest turnaround time when it comes to success. All right, so if anybody is having issues with seeing my screen or hearing me, please let me know now. Or actually, just tell me if you can. Just give me a yes in the chat box just to confirm that you can see my screen and you can hear me loud and clear before we proceed. All right, just one or two more people. Just give me a yes in the chat. Hey, Fraser, thanks. All right, so if you're just coming in, yes, of course, this is recorded. Will be posted in the members area. But what I was saying before some of you joined is that the best trainings I do inside this community are the ones where I'm sharing something that's working for me right now. So I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it, but I like to share and say, hey, I'm doing this and it's working. And if I can turn around and share that with the community, well, then that's something that could be helpful. And those trainings tend to get the most positive feedback, and people are able to take those trainings and implement them. All right, so let's get moving. All right, so what's the scoop? All right, so in previous trainings, and depending on when you're watching this, you can go back in the members area and you can look for them. We've discussed how to quickly launch campaigns. All right, so a lot of times people say, well, how do I, do I need to test a bunch of different interests, or do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? I created a training showing, hey, here's how I quickly launch my campaigns, and you can go in the members area and you can see that video. Okay. We also did a video on what to do next. Okay. So basically, you're running a campaign, and maybe you're profitable, maybe you're breaking even, maybe you're losing money, but we talked about what to do next, and we had a focus on lookalike audiences. Okay, but one thing people ask a lot about is interest targeting. All right, so targeting specific interests. All right, and the age-old question is: do you put multiple interests in an ad set, or test just one at a time? And again, I always like to make this clear. I'm not saying that this is the right or the wrong way. I'm just telling you how I'm using how I'm running my campaigns and what I'm seeing success with. And then you can take it and you can test that yourself, because I know plenty of people who may come and say, well, I do it this way and I get good results, and that's fine. But obviously, this is a community based around uh, my subscribers and my customers. So of course, I'm going to share with them what I'm finding success with, not what I read somebody else is finding success with. That stuff I generally will just share with you inside the group. So here's what you need to know. All right. I want to just go on record saying this. I do not test one interest at a time when launching a campaign. All right, so if I just open like a brand new ads account and I was trying to get some success, I probably would not just run a bunch of ads with one interest. Okay. Now, let me clarify that, because I'm not saying that it's wrong to do that. In fact, I think that's a great thing to do if you have the patience to do it and you have the budget to spread around on a bunch of different interests. I don't think it's a bad idea if the interests are big enough to really test. Okay, you got to give it time, and you've got to give it money, and you've got to be able to manage all the different ads you're testing. Okay, so what I prefer to do is what I taught a few weeks back, and again, depending on when you're watching this, you may just need to go search for that training. but I prefer just to start out with a bunch of targeted interest in one campaign. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll split test, like I'll do segments. Okay, I'll do like magazines in one ad set or blogs in one ad set, stuff like that. But the easiest thing for me is just to get up what I consider really good interest and run a campaign. Okay, so like I said, testing one interest at a time can work to find winners. Okay, but I just prefer to combine a few good interests into an ad set. That's how I like to start. My motto is done is better than perfect. I don't like to just go overboard trying to do too much at once because I used to, and I felt like it prevented me from progressing and moving forward as fast as I wanted. All right, so if you are running ad sets and testing with single interest, well, here's the good, okay? Because just because I don't do it right off the bat doesn't mean it's not good. But here's the good, okay? You can obviously see how that individual interest performs. Okay. And I heard this yesterday on a podcast, and I haven't explored this or seen it, but I heard that Facebook is actually rolling something out where you can split test interests, but you can split test them by, so let's say you're targeting two interests and each interest is, let's say, 1 million people. Well, 500,000 of those people may be in both interests, meaning 500,000 may be in interest one and interest two, and there only may be 500,000 unique people in each interest. Well, I listened on a podcast. I didn't hear all of the info, and I haven't seen anything, but I heard that Facebook is rolling something out where basically you can split test, and what they'll do is they'll only show your ads to people that are in a specific interest that aren't in another interest you're targeting. So let's say you're targeting let's say you're targeting drawing a blank here. Mattress firm and Tempur-Pedic. Maybe you're trying to sell mattresses. Those are two separate interests, Mattress Firm and Tempur-Pedic. Well, if 500,000 people are in both, Facebook will only show your ads to the unique people in each interest, so you can do a true split test. Okay, so that's actually kind of appealing. You can see how individual interests perform when you only run one interest at a time. All right. Another benefit is you can target tons of audiences, right? So you're never going to really run out of ways to scale and different interests to target because you're separating them one at a time. All right. So the bad, if you want to call it the bad, is if you're running ads with single interests, you have lots of ads to manage. That's just the reality of it. Rather than having maybe 5 to 10 interests in one ad set, you have 5 to 10 different ad sets. So obviously that's more to manage. You have to assess, you have to see what's working and what's not working. Okay. The other, what I would consider quote unquote the bad is you have to break up your spend across multiple interests. So let's say you would normally spend $50 per ad set. Well, if you have 20 different ad sets, each with one interest, that can add up pretty quickly. So you may not be able to spend what you would like on each ad set. Okay, so you may have to break up that spend, which could be viewed as a negative. All right, so who's going to benefit from today's training? And today's training is sort of like last week's, where it's really direct. It's not lengthy. It's just, hey, here's what I'm doing to see success, and that way you can take it and implement it as well. All right, so here's who's going to benefit. Anyone running Facebook ads, but more specifically, anyone running Facebook ads who wants to know what I consider, again, what I consider, this isn't best practices or what Facebook says, this is my experience, what I consider the ideal time to use single interest in an ad set. Okay, because I found that I see more success using single interest at some periods of time versus others in the life cycle of Facebook advertising. Okay, and as we always do inside the community on our calls, I want to tell you how to implement this today. Okay, so I want to tell you kind of step by step just what you need to do that you could actually hop off the call and hopefully implement it yourself. Okay, so here's where this gets specific to what I'm doing. Okay, so you can, like I said, start out your campaign. And let's say you're doing e-commerce, because we have a lot of people doing e-commerce, and you're starting a brand new test on a product. You can test single interest, but in that case, me personally, I like to just kind of group some together, okay? But when I use single interest, I don't use them at the beginning. What I do is I wait until I have a winner or a seasoned pixel, okay? So when I say a winner or a seasoned pixel, I mean a winning campaign that's doing well, or a pixel that's seasoned, meaning I've had campaigns do well in the past, meaning my pixel has data on buyers and add to carts and stuff like that. Because remember, Facebook does, every time somebody adds to cart or views content or buys, that data is on your Facebook pixel. So your pixel gets smarter over time. Okay, so before you can implement this the way I do it, again, the way I do it, you need a campaign that's performing well. Okay, again, you can do this at the start of a campaign and you can see success. But this is me talking specific about when I'm finding success doing this. Okay, so you need a campaign doing well or past campaigns that have seasoned your pixel over time. All right, and again, I just touched on this. You can use single interest anytime you want. This is just my particular strategy. Okay, so one thing you'll want to do is you'll want to throw winning interests in graph search or audience insights. So let's say you had a winning campaign in the past, or you have a winning campaign right now that you have some interests that are performing well. Well, you can either throw them in graph search, and in graph search is very simple. I've talked about this before. You just throw them in and say, hey, pages liked by people who like interest 1 and interest 2 and interest 3. And those X's represent the interests that are currently performing well for you on your existing campaigns. Now, the alternative to that is just using audience insights, where you can use custom audiences of website traffic, fans of your page, or interests. So again, if you have interests performing well, you can throw those in audience insights and then see what other pages those people like, or see what other pages have high affinity to your current interests that are performing well. Is everybody with me so far? I've said a lot, so just give me a thumbs up or whatever to let me know you're with me. All right, very important. Once you do this, regardless of how you do it, so if you do the graph search method, what's going to happen is Facebook's going to give you a list of pages that people like that also like the previous pages that you put in. All right, or if you use audience insights, you'll have a list of different categories in pages or interests that people like that also like the previous interests you put in. Okay. Now, one thing I like to make clear is that in most cases you want to ignore, initially at least, you want to ignore bigger interests like CNN or Oprah. And let me say this: if you can find more specific big interests, so rather than targeting Oprah, maybe I find a show on the Food Network that's a little bit more specific. Maybe it's still a big interest. Maybe Oprah's 50 million and this is 2 million. Well, I want to use that one that's 2 million. Okay. So in most cases, you'll want to avoid these. However, with this strategy, you can actually use them. But what I would say is that the more seasoned your pixel is and the better your offer is converting, the more broad you can go. Okay, so if your campaign's doing well and it's crushing and you can use something like CNN to target the masses, well, great. But most of the time, you may be better off targeting something more specific. So maybe maybe instead of CNN, you target something more specific, like maybe one of the anchors on CNN shows up as a high affinity or shows up in graph search, right? So that would be something a little bit more specific that versus targeting something so broad, okay? Because you are going to see these big ones, right? It's just how it is, right? You're going to see like Nike and stuff like that, but try and stick to stuff that you feel like is more niche specific. So again, maybe CNN has an audience of 50 million, but maybe you can find something that's not quite that big, but still big of like 5 million. You're better off going after that. All right, and then at this point is when you would test one interest per ad set. All right, so you get a list of the fan pages or interests, either from Graph Search or from Audience Insights. Preferably good size ones, okay? I like to do 1 million or above. And keep in mind, you've already got winning campaigns, winning interests, a seasoned pixel using the way I'm doing it. And then just test one interest per ad set, okay? And you can test individual placements as well, right? So you can test, let's say your interest is Mattress Firm, right? Where you can test Mattress Firm on mobile, Mattress Firm on desktop, and Mattress Firm on Instagram if you want, okay? So you can mix and match which interest and which placements perform the best. The reason I don't do this from the beginning, and I've said this, it can work from the beginning to find winning interest and help you find winning campaigns. But I prefer at the beginning to just get up and running as fast as I can, throw up a couple interests in an ad set, and then take the time to do this once I've already seen some success. So now I'm like, okay, I'm having success. Let me do this now to try and scale out a little bit more. And then I feel like it's worth my time to test interest and test placements because I know that I have an offer doing well. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That's probably the best way I can put it. Okay, me personally, I start the ad sets at around $33 per day. Okay, I'll say this. I generally start at either 25 or 33 in this phase to test an interest. $25 or $33. I don't know why, those are just numbers I like. Okay, and again, you don't want to go too big here because you're testing a lot of interest in placements. So let's say I test one interest in all three placements at $25. Well, that's $75 invested into that one interest. So if I'm doing 10 interests, well, suddenly I'm at $750 of testing per day, okay? And that's not a bad thing when you have an offer doing well, but if you were doing this from the start, that's kind of a lot to test from day one, okay? All right, and very important, when you're testing interest, give them about 72 hours. I know some people will tell you to shut it off if it starts off bad or whatnot, but I think if you give it some time, you can really understand what works and what doesn't. And again, like I always say, we're dealing with real people, so one day is to me not enough to get a good indication if something's going to work or not. The next step is very simple. Not everything will work. In fact, much will fail. Okay, you may set up 30 tests and 20 may fail. Okay, but that's fine because you're going to keep what does work and you're going to throw out the rest. So now you've found 10 winning ad sets that are going to help you scale out, and 10 winning interests and placements that are going to help you scale out. Okay, you may notice some weird things too, like you may notice Instagram does well for one interest, but that same interest performs poorly on desktop. Or maybe mobile does well with one interest, but Instagram performs poorly for that same interest. Okay, it's funny how that works, but sometimes it does. Okay, and like I said, maybe you do 10 interests and maybe 4 do great and 6 fail. That's fine because now you have 4 that you know work, and then guess what? You can do it again. You can take those 4 that did well and put them in Graph Search or Audience Insights and come up with a whole new list of single interest to target. And that is how you can kind of repeat the process over and over to continue scaling up a campaign and getting new ideas. And that is when I find using single interest to be the best time to use with Facebook advertising, not from the start. Because at the start, there's a lot more risk because you're not sure if your offer is going to convert. All right, just to sum everything up, I like using single interest to scale my campaigns once my pixel is seasoned and I have a winning product or offer. And again, you can do this at the beginning of a campaign as well, but the advantage of doing it quote unquote my way is that you use interests that already perform well to find new interests you can test individually. And to add to that, you eliminate some of the risk, because when you're doing it at the start, if you don't know a campaign is going to do well, you're kind of taking lots of time and money to test individual interests. Whereas at the start, you may be better off just getting something out there, getting it up as quick as possible. And then if it works, well, then you can focus on testing and scaling from there. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. And I'll take some questions now if you have them. All right, everybody understand what we did here? Does anybody have questions? Okay, well, looks like we do not have additional questions. That's the training. So for those of you on this call, if you have a campaign that has done well, use Graph Search or Audience Insights to maybe find some additional interest, and then maybe test those single interests. Yeah, so Howard says, so we start off broad and then wind down to single interest. Yeah, so Howard, again, I know very big names in the Facebook marketing world who suggest you start out campaigns by testing one interest at a time, and I know that works. But yeah, for what I like to do and what I think makes the most sense is not start off necessarily broad, but maybe when you start out, find five good interests to throw into an ad set and test. And if your campaign performs well, then great. Then you can kind of implement this strategy. And if your campaign doesn't perform well, then just shut it off. So yeah, you may sacrifice a bit by not testing those interests one by one. But to me, the time and the money it takes to do that from the very beginning with no guarantee your campaign will work. So I just kind of weigh the risk reward there. Okay, any other questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, thanks everybody who came on this call. And make sure you hop off, make sure you implement. I think Facebook's algorithm is smarter than it's ever been before. I'm very confident now testing big interests that are like in the millions. But I'm more confident doing it once I have a winning campaign. So I'm even seeing more success targeting single interest than I am lookalike audiences in some cases, but only when I have, I have a seasoned pixel and an offer that I know converts. So give it a shot and let me know how it goes in the group. In the meantime, I'm going to get this recording rendered and I'll have it posted in the members area. All right, so thanks to everybody who came out for this call, and I'll talk to you soon.